Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, March 8th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show show before the show. Hit it, Danny. That's what today's like. That's Danny, he's back east. That's Dan.
That's me.
To the left. We're waiting for. Today's a ninja rap type day. What's the name of the song?
Ninja Rock.
It says Ninja Rap, but I thought it was Go Ninja.
Slamming and jamming to the new swing sound. Yeah, everybody
have new. Yeah, they
They're not bad.
No, they're Michael Bay, the worst director ever, too. By the way, so it's all about the old Ninja Turtles. The OGs know what's up. Kevin Nash apparently, according to Goes.
Yeah, Kevin Nash was the original Super Shred. Look in the IMDb.
Lyrics, fill in the gaps, drop that bass and get the ninja rap. Feel it, if you know what I mean, give it up for the heroes in green.
Whatever happened to Vanilla Ice? His original music was awesome.
Did you get like hung over
I was literally just about to say that. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
Like Michael Jackson did to his kid, Suge Knight did to him.
Yeah, he doesn't own the rights to his biggest song, I don't think. So he made no money from that.
He was very upset.
The heck was that? A little stutter there for a second.
That was, yeah, got tripped up.
2 minutes.
On today's show, Miletich. Yes.
Are we gonna make them? Are we gonna make them all do the ninja rap?
You've never met Pat Miletich before.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna.
Anything
No.
Well, we could ask him. We could ask him. Maybe he's like really into Ninja Turtles and he's just waiting for that outlet. And no one's ever asked him.
Do you like to ask him that question? I'd love to see how that goes down.
Why don't we do a bet and we'll set it up for Danny and say some of us bet that you've watched Ninja Turtles and others that says you haven't. Because I don't know if he has or hasn't. I think that's a really good old like 50-50 question, right?
We could do that.
Has Pat Miletich seen Ninja Turtles too? Or does he know where this song's from?
I mean, we don't even have to play it. We're coming up in a minute. We don't even have to play him the song. We just say, "Have you watched Ninja Turtles?"
There you go.
That could be an easy.
Yeah, but it's an excuse to play the song again, Danny.
Oh no, I'll play it in the background. What if he's like, "Yeah, I love Ninja Turtles. I got it on Blu-ray."
I'd be creeped out. No, I'm just kidding. No, that'd be awesome. I'd be an even bigger fan. Because I'm a Ninja Turtles fan, but that would be surprising, though. That would be very surprising.
Coming up at 30. I think it's trailing out now. Yeah.
It's funny, George was walking in and he had this swag like he was listening to the song.
Maybe he was.
Is he still?
Yeah.
What? Alright, we're done. Alright. We're coming up at 10. Hey, can you ask him that question, by the way?
Yeah.
About the guest? Alright, coming back. Or coming up, saying bye.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology, MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Go.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. Our ace co-host to my left, it's the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, handling all the producing duties, Danny Otto. By the way, Happy Chicks Day, everybody. Chicks and guys that are into chicks or love chicks like I do. Yeah, it's Female Species Day or Female Day or Ladies Day or something like that. Oh, yeah. That's why I threw on the pink last minute. It was Juliet's idea.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so it's got an official title, but I grew up calling them chicks. They like being called chicks, right? Ladies when they're a little bit older, like 30 and older.
Dude,
younger, it's like, hey, let's go talk to those chicks. And I don't think anybody would be offended about that.
This day and age, not only will women be offended, but chicklings will also be offended with that term.
Exactly.
Dude, guys,
you see that lady on CNN that wants the word man to get rid of it out of all the English language? Yeah, just the word man itself.
Why? Then what do we do?
I don't know. And this was on Fox News, for crying out loud. But the guy goes, well, what about if you live in Manchester, New England, and they want to change that too? It's just the only reason I gave her some time. Well, never mind.
So women will be turned into woes now. So be like, I'm just gonna roll up and get some woes with me.
I don't know, but she wanted the word man you had to get rid of it on everything English language, and she actually got some time on Fox News.
Wow, powerful.
Yeah.
What a banana.
So all right, if you're offended, hit me up at MMA Junkie George. See if I give you an apology. I don't think so.
Starting the show with the cards on our table.
Yeah, man, come on. Chicks love being called chicks. And at some point, they become ladies. Right?
Hey, only me.
I'm looking at Goes.
I've been out of this.
Goes is just slowly stepping away like the Simpsons. Like,
no, listen. They're chicks, all right? They're chicks. Okay. But at some point when it's proper and then they come around or whatever, then you just go, oh, well, you're an interesting lady, or whatever. But trust me, they know that they're chicks, and I think at 30 and above, you just go with ladies or whatever.
See,
but as a young guy,
is it tough though with like keeping up with the references though, because like we're all kind of different ages here, But even for me, okay, I'm 32, and I'm like trouble. Okay, what's allowed? What's in? There's that question, and there's also what's allowed with what we're talking about. And something I point to, something more of your generation, I want to say, the Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I always point to Spicoli. You guys remember Spicoli?
Yeah.
Remember that? That's like a classic movie. It's still a classic. It was like 1982. It's a while ago, but not that long ago. But even in Spicoli says, where they're talking about the Forrest Whitaker and the football team. Mm-hmm. Remember he's getting interviewed by the I forget, it's an actual legitimate sports broadcaster guy. They got to do the role. Mm-hmm. And he was I don't want to repeat the word, but he uses the F word, not the F-U-C-K, right? He uses the other F word. He goes, oh, those guys are... Yeah. And, like, nobody bats an eye, right? Everybody loves Spicoli. He's a beloved character in the film, but you watch it with, now you fast forward 30 years. Oh. You go back and watch it, you're like, oh, crap. Oh, I don't know if they pass that in a movie now.
If you watch, is it TV Land? They'll show, like, Sanford and Son. What's Archie Bunker? What was that called?
It was Archie Bunker.
But no, what was the name of the show? All in the Family? Is that what it was called or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they drop a lot of those different things like that just wouldn't fly today. Yeah. And it's weird. They get away with it. Nobody says anything, so.
That's just, that difference always been there, right? I mean,
well, what happened was, I think I went through a phase, and I just stepped out of it. Now I don't give a shit anymore.
Okay.
Chicks is not offensive, in my opinion. If
2018,
you have a problem with it, seriously, stop listening. There you go. So we'll lose a listener, because there's only one numbnuts out there that's offended, and if we lost that listener, big deal.
I've decided that my
big deal
2018 comedic sense will be edgy.
Okay.
I'm going to be edgy in 2018.
So if a bunch of little chicklings on next week's show start
now, if they were offended, then I would reconsider my stance.
Well, in that case, like
the little chicklings,
I would come in. You wouldn't come in with like 20-piece chicken McNuggets the next day if they're going to come in. Okay, you can come protest the show. Oh, you want?
That guy that ate 100 of them.
No, but somebody ate 2 Big Macs per day since 1970 something. I think he reached 20,000 or whatever.
Who is this hero?
Yeah, two Big Macs per day, I believe, is what I heard.
You know my buddy Tommy?
And it's 20,000. So yeah, it was on one of the Sirius XM channels.
My buddy Tommy eats a double Del cheeseburger and a bean burrito every day that he works. He's been
a double Del
cheeseburger. 2
cheeseburger.
years now that he's been doing this.
Did we change the password over here or what?
I don't know.
The password is
a double Del cheeseburger and a what?
And a bean burrito later on for lunch.
Every day he works. He works 5 days a week.
Yeah, he always goes in early, like sometimes as early as 4 a.m.
Is he not aware of the other burgers that are out there?
He's just weird. But he's been doing that. He's going to die.
Well, so this guy got everything checked out, and he's considered to be in good health. So that's probably what he told the people that were interviewing him. I don't know how true that is. But, yeah. Anyway, all right. So today, same thing as yesterday or the day before, I forget. Our guest could only go earlier in the show. So we're going to talk for a few more minutes, keep insulting chicks, and take that early break, and then we'll come back with Jorge Gurgel, who was scheduled to be on yesterday's show, but we moved it to today because in fairness, he was ready to go. We just got backed up a few minutes, and when we looked at the clock, our producer Danny needed to get the hell out of Dodge because he lives across the bridge, across the river in New Jersey, but he works in New York at the Sirius XM studios. And they were expecting a ton of snow. It turns out it wasn't as bad as it was, but it was still bad enough to impact transportation. So there was no OT, there was no option. And once that happened, we just said that was more important because we know we could catch up with George at some point. And George agreed, so that's why we moved it last minute. Otherwise, we would have powered through and done some OT. OT's never a problem with us. But
it's like the first time that I've ever said it's a good thing that we didn't do OT or anything, because I left here, ran to the subway, and ran to Port Authority, and I was on one of the last buses before they started closing stuff off.
Wow.
Yeah, it was close. I almost called you.
He's the guy hopping on the train at the end of the caboose. Yeah. He's like, holding on the rail.
Well, what would you have done?
I was gonna.
I got a better one.
If I got denied from the bus, I was going to try the train. But the only problem with taking the train, I would have had to walk when I got home, like in the snow. And then I would see if that was an option, and if it was an option, then I would probably have called Cousin Chris and just said like, "Hey, how do I get to your house?"
So it turns out that sleeper sofa. I just watched U.S. Marshals. And there's that scene with Wesley Snipes when he's running on that roof and then jumps on the train. I like that one.
I was going to go with Bronx Tale.
I forget what his name was.
That hide on the
John Champion or what? What?
Bronx Tale, the little kids that hide on the back of Lorenzo's bus.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot that.
Hey, calling back to yesterday's conversation, you can do all these things on a train in movies apparently, but God forbid you try to beat up an old man in John Voight, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What movie was that again?
Mission Impossible. I'm still on.
Oh, that's right. I got to watch
Mission Impossible is great, George. You have to watch.
Yeah,
that.
No, I admit that. I dropped the ball.
Movie.
I've heard great things about it, and like Ving Rhames is in one of them, right? At least
he's in that one. So is John Reno, the guy that looks like Vladdy Divac.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And even though Tom Cruise is a aloof individual, I still think he's a phenomenal actor, and he's done a lot of great movies. He's banked enough credit with me that I should have given him that. But I think at the time I got hit with Taken, 3 of them, Born Identity, 3 of them.
I've never seen that movie.
These guys that robbed Vegas, Ocean's 11. There was 3 or 4 of those, and this, and I was like, I got to pick and choose, and so I just said Mission Impossible. I'll get around to you someday. But I heard they have great stunts, and Tom Cruise does a lot of his own.
It was one of those few movies where like I remember seeing it in '95 when it opened, and like the adults were coming out of the movie, like how I was a 10-year-old kid, and they're coming out.
That's
little
when
kids
the first Mission Impossible came out?
Yep.
When you were 10?
Done. Yep. 1995.
Yeah.
Wow. And people were coming out, like moving like this, and it was funny. Like, I remember the commercial because here's how old it was. You know how it says like, no talking, turn off your cell phones. Well, there was no cell phones in the early '90s, guys. Remember? It was no smoking because people, no smoking, and remember, no red meat. I don't know why.
No red meat.
Remember that? Remember that?
That?
You guys never saw that? Like, you would sit in your United Artists, and it'd be like, no popcorn, no smoking. Shh, keep silent during the movie. No red meat. I'm like, who is handing out red meat? And I remember in that Mission Impossible movie, someone stands out from the front and goes, "Hey, no talking and no red meat." And they sit back down, and they got a pop in the audience.
Sam, the guy that called in yesterday, he smokes in movie theaters.
Sam Perez?
Oh, okay.
He does? Cigarettes or pot?
No, cigar.
What is he, Max Cady?
Yeah.
He does that? Still, to this day?
I don't know.
No, maybe it was old school or something, but
it's like one of those taxi driver theaters.
Show one time and he was stun gunning somebody because they were getting mad at him for the cigar.
Wow, that's a bold individual right there.
Yeah. What was he like? Was he like De Niro and like Cape Fear? Just
that's
Max Cady.
That's Max Cady.
That's him. Oh my
All right.
Hey, who is he? Robert De Niro? You guys gonna give different?
Okay.
So today, Jorge Gurgel will be one. Oh, this guy's late too. Jorge Gurgel will be one of the guests, and the other one will be Pat Miletich, former UFC welterweight champion, UFC Hall of Famer, former coach to champions like Matt Hughes and Jens Pulver and Tim Sylvia. So he was the head coach of Miletich Fighting Systems, and then fighting and coaching wasn't enough. He decided to become a broadcaster, and one day I think you could honestly say Hall of Fame fighter, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame broadcaster. He does great work, going back to the Strikeforce days, now with Access TV, along with Ron Kruk, who I'm not sure if he's calling play-by-play tomorrow. He was originally going to be our guest, but Pat is stepping in so we can discuss tomorrow night's LFA card. So those will be our two guests, and just to give you a little bit of an idea of who we have tomorrow, Mike Pyle will be in studio as our co-host, and Joseph Duffy will be our co-host on Monday. Mike Swick and Curtis Blades have already also given us confirmations on their appearances soon as well. So
throwing their hats in the ring,
having a lot of fun with that. And exactly. So for now, let's take that break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Jorge Gurgel, who you've seen lately as the translator for the Ultimate Fighting Championship when they are interviewing the Brazilian athletes. I've also seen him on the second season of Tough, and of course he had a career as a fighter in Strikeforce and the UFC amongst many other organizations. He's also a gym owner. He's a good guy. We'll be right back.
Let's see. Up, up, down, down, left, right, B-A, start. You told me that code would get rid of them. Yeah, well, they're still here. Okay, but now they know I tried to kill them. Hold on, Mom. Here Georgian goes.
The Jim Rome Show is now on Sirius XM weekdays at noon Eastern. Catch the Jungle and the rest of the CBS Sports Network on Channel 201 and the Sirius XM app. All right, our first guest of the day is a former UFC Strikeforce King of the Cage veteran. He's also a gym owner. He was also on the second season of The Ultimate Fighter, and currently now you've seen him in the octagon as a translator for the Ultimate Fighting Championship when they are using the Brazilian fighters. He's from Brazil, now living in the United States. He joins us now. It's Jorge Gurgel. What's up, George? How you doing?
What's going on? It's good to have. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Man, it's great to see you.
Man, the phone was breaking up. The phone was horrible. I was listening to you guys. It was going in and out, going in and out. As soon as you said something, my name, and I was supposed to speak, I can hear very clearly now. It's a lot better. Thank you. I was kind of nervous. Couldn't hear anything you were saying.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm glad we have you there. And I was saying it's really, really cool to see you there taking on another responsibility as an official translator there for the UFC with the Brazilian athletes. It's just really cool to have you be a part of the sport, you know, in many different ways. Gym owner, fighter, and now translating.
It was like it was how not many people have an opportunity to have a second career, you know, in the UFC, and it's I get to use my degree. You know, I have a degree in simultaneous translation. That was my first job. I taught English in Brazil for a long time, and I actually applied to be honest with you guys. You know, they asked me one time, a long time ago, to translate for Thiago Silva when he fought with Rashad Evans.
Oh wow!
That was I think 2008 or 9. So ever since then, I've been every time there's a translator, and I watch it, you know, but I get the messages. I don't like any bad areas or anything else. But people say, George, you do a much better job. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? My mom used to say, why aren't you doing this? Why are you not the one? You fought. You can't do it. You're not a translator, interpreter. There's a big difference. In translator, you give me a book in a certain language, and then in a week later, I'll give you the book completely translated in the language that you wish. Or I can go, and I have time to translate. An interpreter, it comes in one ear, and it comes out of my mouth in a different language. So it's a different set of skills. And when the message, you know, gets lost in between the lingos and emotions of the fighter, right after probably the peak of their emotional, you know, chaos after they win a fight, usually they don't say all the things that they want to say. And the fans and everybody else needs to feel what they're feeling and feel the emotion. But for, you know, me having been a fighter that fought in the UFC and Strikeforce and been employed by Zuffa for a decade, it's a lot easier for me to understand. I know the coaches, I know a lot of the fighters, and to understand what is the message, how do I make the fans feel what the fighter is feeling. So I wrote them in emails, the producers, they know who they are, and I said, guys, I can audition anytime. I can do a better job than any of them. I have a degree in English. I can do this. I want to be the face of the Brazilian fighters in the UFC because I think I can do a better job than anyone else. If you don't believe me, please I'd love to audition like a regular person. And the more I did, the more that I got some confidence. You know, practice makes it perfect. And I kept doing. Now they call me for the great ones, and I don't need, you know, the money. It's amazing. It's just to be involved and sit next to the old friends. Joe is there, Janenik's there, Daniel Cormier. I sit in the best seat of the house. I still watch the greatest fights. I just got to see Frankie Edgar fight, man. You know, in Cyborg, and I was there in the first seat. So it's nothing to do with the pay. It's awesome to be still involved with the UFC and also being a positive light and voice for the Brazilian fighters to be able to translate the message more clearly, you know, and make a difference, you know, do a good job. Maybe I wasn't the best fighter, I never was, but being an interpreter, I think I'm the best at it, and I'm very, very blessed, fortunate that I took the initiative to go after the job, and the UFC having trust in me, and CONCOM having trust in me, you know, to keep me doing this job. So I hope to keep doing for as long as they want me to.
So George, you're saying that you feel a lot of the emotions that the fighters are feeling because you have fought, you know where their head is at, and what does that equal in terms of what they say and what's coming out of your mouth? Do you have to make a lot of changes, a few changes, or are you able to get us almost everything that they're saying exactly like how they want it?
Yeah, I do exactly. See, I do the message, so I say exactly what they say. So the message is exactly the same. I may tweak, for example. I'm going to give you, for instance, if it's live on Fox, now being the prelims is live on Fox, if they say in Portuguese, the F word or this or that. I don't give a who I fight next or the cuss. If it's a pay-per-view, I translate literally what they said. If it's in a Fox, I translate because I don't really care who I fight next. So I just translate the lingo. A lot of times there's the lingos of the katagatame, for example, it's an arm triangle. They'll say katagatame in Portuguese, they don't go arm triangle. So the translators that have not been there and don't know the fight lingo and the intricacies of the language when it comes to Portuguese, and actually a fighter is speaking in Portuguese, will just be a monotone translator making the person feel like there's a robot, and it sounds like this. I'd like to thank you, my team, and very blessed, and thank you, Jesus, and I'm very, very next for the next one. I will be ready. I want the belt. Like, no, it sounds monotone and no emotion. No, and so I take a lot of pride in being able to, and the coaches have come to up to me and said I've done a good job. But when the fighters don't speak English, if you think about it, they didn't have the privilege to have that kind of education. So now they try to be the best fighters it can be. So my job for them is nobody wants to see, no matter if you win or lose, you want to see somebody fight. So for you to want to see somebody fight is easier if you know their personality. So if they do not speak the language, it's my absolute job to make the crowd, the English-speaking crowd, understand and probably like the person as much as they can, or get to know the person as much as they possibly can through my words, because they don't speak English. So I really think there's a big responsibility, and I take my job very seriously. I study, I do my homework, I know what camps they come from. In Brazil, they have also accents. The North speaks different than in Rio, than the Northeast Coast. Just like in New York, they speak different than California, or obviously different within Kentucky. So I have to pick up on the accents, and the linguas are different. And then I really focus on translating the message, since they do not speak English, so the fans can have the most exposure to like, dislike, or make a choice about that fighter.
Which part of Brazil has the thickest accent, and which one's the toughest to interpret for?
Oh man, that's another interesting question. That's great. They're all I'm used to more than the others, but North is usually very thick. Is Manaus or Jacaré, Cavalcante is from, is where Vieira is from. Kathleen Vieira, a good great fighter, just translated for her, is from. Rio is just a more swagger. Fortaleza, actually, I come from, in the northeast of Brazil. We are considered the hillbillies. In Fortaleza, the northeast, are the guys that we're talking about Kentucky and Ohio. So we have the accent that says, the words that are, oh, you say that word? That's funny. The people in Rio and São Paulo like to make fun of us. They were from Ceará, Fortaleza, or Bahia, Nordestino from the northeast. So we always speak differently. There is not even a more difficult one, or they just, it's different languages, different words, different terminologies that once you speak to the coach for a little bit and get acquainted with it, it becomes just an easy task. The language is the language. I'm interested in the message.
Goes, what do you have for Jorge Gurgel?
George, are there any techniques that you can do that help with comprehension? And because sometimes they'll give you a lot, like 3 or 4 sentences before they even finish with what they're trying to say. It seems like a lot to have to remember. I know there's techniques with memory, things you can do. What about, are there anything you can do for that?
Yes. I studied a lot of interviews before then, of the specific. If I have 4 fighters in the card, I watch a lot of interviews with them, and I watch also interviews with them done in Portuguese, like how they speak in Portuguese, in the Portuguese television. I Google, I YouTube, and I watch the interviews. But honestly, I do like I did my fighting career. I do not like I teach my students and run my business in my schools and teach my seminars. I always talk to myself, George, just be yourself. Be yourself. I have a vast knowledge of the language. Portuguese, I've done this for many years, and in Portuguese and English when it comes to interpreting and simultaneously translating. I'm very confident in doing so. I don't have any jitters or nervousness in the camera, even though we're right there in the moment. I cannot mess up. I cannot stutter. But I just do my homework. I'm confident in my skills. I go in there and listen. Joe Rogan does it all the time. Joe's funny. Every time Kathleen Vieira or somebody else speaks to Jacaré, and he looks at me and goes, "You got all that?" Like in the middle of the interview, I'm like, "Joe, of course, I got it. Here it goes. Stand out." It's just the mess. If you say, I'm going to give you an example. It goes, "I would like to thank Lord Jesus Christ, He's my God and Savior. Without Lord, I'm nothing. So without Jesus, I'm nothing. I want to thank first my Lord Jesus Christ first and foremost, because it's my so that was about 12 seconds. And then when it's time for me to go, goes, "Would you like?" She's thinking, or he or she would like to thank God, the Lord, because without the Lord, he's nothing. Because there's nothing. All glory to God. And then I move on to about the opponent. But I don't have to praise or stay in the same subject for 12 seconds. I can take the message in about 3. So when he speaks a lot, Joe gets all the blah, 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 blah. All my friends do, my students do a lot. They say, "George, really become professor. How do you do that? How can you memorize all that?" As Joe is listening and asking the questions, as the fighter is answering, I'm already speaking in my head in Portuguese, in English.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So I'm organizing. So as she's answering, or Joe asks the question, I pay very close attention to those questions, so I know what to expect as the answer, because I also watch the fight. So I know what he's going to ask. I know somewhat what the answer is going to be. When they answer, the fighter answers, as they're answering, I'm formulating the sentences already in my head. So when Joe goes, "What is it?" It just comes out. It's just me being me, using what I memorized, what I retained, organize the sentences as possible as I did in my head, but it's not really like in blocks of organization. I just go translate or story in my head, and the microphone in, it comes the same way it came in, it comes out.
You know, George.
So I start translating before it speaks. Yeah.
You're a former fighter as well. You've competed in that very same octagon. What is it like? I have to imagine as a fighter that you have these different emotions that may be pulled from you in between fights. How is it like to try and regulate those emotions, having to go from a high and then bring it back down and do the translation, and then once again, get that high again from the fight? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh no, I watch the fight like I'm blessed. I'm watching the fights like the fans like Joe watches. I'm going, "Oh, yes, oh my God, oh there you go." I'm watching the fights like a fan. I'm a fan. That's why I love fighting. So but I'm paying attention also. Between rounds, I have to do translating. So as the fight goes on, one of the corners is usually sitting next to us, next to the transmission booth. So out of the side of one of my right ear, I take one of the headphones off, and I constantly listen to the corner. I constantly listen to what they're doing. If they're circling to the wrong way, circling towards the power, not using the leg kicks right, set up more takedowns. I get all the information. I store the information. When it goes to the corner, he's going to say what he's going to say to her or to him. I already know half of what's going on wrong. So my translation in the corner, I have 30 seconds to relay the message of what the quarterman says, and that's the one sometimes the most important because it's fight changing. In between rounds, you can change the strategy, it's fight changing. So I'm watching the fight like a fan, but I'm really engaged in my work. I love to watch the fight, but my main really goal, I'm focused. I'm a focused person, and I'm trying to do my work the best way I can. I enjoy being there. I mean, I got the best seat in the house. I'm sitting right next to the broadcasters, and all I have to do really is not that easy, but all I have to do is my job, and do my job to its perfection. I don't have nearly as difficult as Joe Rogan, John Anik, Dominic Cruz is a genius, Daniel Cormier does an amazing job, everybody I've worked with, Kenny Floyd, they are on the entire time. They are from broadcasting to sitting back down, and Joe starts literally speaking about the next fighter coming in, like he didn't skip a beat. He's on this camp, he did this fight, his record is this, I'm looking forward to this kid, and then the fight goes on, Joe commentates the entire fight with John Anik. As soon as it's over, he gets up there, introduces the person, so he does organically as well. Joe Rogan just has it in him. I really believe something that's like this, that is sporadic, and is very organic, you have to have it in you. You cannot just rehearse it, You have to be able to perform under the bright lights, on a whim, on that moment, translate the message right, and you only have one chance. Go.
Gotcha. Just one more question from me before I turn it over to our other co-host, Dan, here. But you mentioned two names during our interview, and that was Kalen Vieira and Cyborg. And I started to think the landscape of mixed martial arts for Brazilians is very different now. Do you feel like the females, like Cyborg, Vieira, Amanda Nunes, Andrade, Gadelha, are they picking up that flag that perhaps Vitor, Vanderlei, the Nogueira brothers, are they kind of picking up that Brazilian flag? And how do you feel like Brazil is taking to these females?
I think it's doing a great job. I don't really see. I see as fighters, man. I see the female fighters are growing all over the world. We see from all over the place, United States, other Brazil. They're trying. Like the flag that our pioneers, Vitor has been my favorite fighter for so long. I love Cowboy now. Donald Cerrone is my favorite to watch. Vitor, Anderson, I know all of them. I've watched them, my entire career. Watched them being the pioneers in Brazil. Has most belts, so you used to have all the belts in the UFC. The sport grows. I cheer for the good champions. So the girls are representing really well. I don't think the guys left off. It's just a phase. The girls will do well. They get a championship. Then another stable of great guys who come. Then another stable of amazing guys who come from Khabib Nurmagomedov's camp. From Russia, they're coming out. Amazing fighters coming out of Western Europe right now too. So there's fighters coming from everywhere. The Brazilian girls, they're definitely representing really well right now. But like I said, it's not like a lack of effort from the man. It's just a phase. We do good or we do bad. It's a fight game. We win some, we lose some, enjoy the journey. I love that they're carrying the Brazilian flag with pride. I love the representing. But like I said, the guys are trying just as hard. It's just waiting for the new generation of Brazilians to show up and shine.
George, hey, it's really great to catch up with you. And again, you're doing a great job, and thanks for giving us some more insight into your job. It's great that you have a passion for it and that you love it like that, and you get to still be involved in the game. So thanks again for giving us some time here on MMA Junkie Radio, man. Continue success with the new gig.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm blessed to have this gig in the UFC. Like I feel like I'm really close to fighting my feet young. I'm great. Like business is good, everything is good. Hope everything is good on your side. It's been a while. Thank you for having me in, and like I said, I'm here whenever you guys need me.
Awesome. All right, thank you, sir. Take care. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that's Jorge Gurgel. Follow him on Twitter at Jorge Gurgel with a George with a J, Jorgegurgel. Former MMA fighter, fought in the UFC, Strikeforce, now interpreting for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. All right, our next guest is ready to go. His name is Pat Miletich. Follow him on Twitter at Pat Miletich, P-A-T-M-I-L-E-T-I-C-H. Former UFC welterweight champion. Defended the belt like 4 or 5 times as well, man. A lot of respect for that. UFC Hall of Famer. And, of course, if they ever have that wing, I think he'll be a Hall of Famer in the as a coach as well. He was the coach of the Miletich Fighting Systems. The tons of success they had. He was the leader, man. That's Jens Pulver, Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes, all champions at the same time. And now, of course, we see him as a color commentator for Access TV. Access TV has some fights headed your way tomorrow night. And the headline bout is Nick Newell versus Sonny Luque. Access TV starts their programming, don't forget, at 9 p.m. Eastern start time now. And it's LFA 35 live from Houston, Texas. Joining us now is the Hall of Famer, Pat Miletich. What's up, Pat? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us again here on MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George and Goes. We also have our fight analyst, Dan Tom, here with us. Pat, it's been a while. I hope all is well in your neck of the woods. New play-by-play guy in the last year. That changed for you. Tell me a little bit about the transition from Chavello to Ron Kruk and just the whole team in general out there at Access TV Fights.
Yeah, we went through a transitional period where we lost our executive producer, Daryl Ewald, who was really one hell of a leader, a hell of a person, and it really affected everybody quite a bit. It was a very tough blow to the broadcast team, and so we did a lot of scrambling, and hats off to the guys in the truck. They shuffled around, and Jason Vaughn took over as executive producer. Jamie McClintock has got to be the youngest sports producer in the country, in the business. He's, I think, 28 years old and does an excellent job. And, so we've really gone through some changes. And then Michael Chavello, his wife, wanted to go back to Australia, so decided that they were going to move back. And so Ron Kruk, they kept it in-house. And Ron has transitioned very well into the position and doing a great job. And, we have a lot of fun together. I won't be working with Ron. I didn't work with him last week and won't be working with him tomorrow night because he had an injured ear, basically tinnitus from a sound check that went wrong, and so they're giving him a couple weeks off to make sure he's keeping his hearing and full 100% before he comes back. So Kenny Rice will be joining me again tomorrow night. I love working with Kenny, good old Kentucky boy. We have a lot of fun together, so it'll be good.
Wow, Pat, the ear check. As soon as you said it, I just winced. Have you ever had one of those go wrong?
No. Thankfully, I have not had that problem, and I can barely get some of the earpieces in my ear. They had to, obviously you want a custom-made one, but
Yeah.
the ear specialist that made mine, it was down south when they did it for a show, and they drove us over to an ear clinic, and the guy took molds of my ears, and he goes, I've never seen ears like this down this far south. We don't have cauliflower ear down here, so he had a good time with it anyway.
Couldn't they have just used like a Chinese fortune cookie or something? Just kind of worked around that? It's similar to this.
something. Yeah.
Let's talk about that main card tomorrow night at LFA 35. Nick Newell versus Sonny Luque. Nick Newell's 13-1, 8-6 for Sonny and Luque. Newell had had some successes, big time WSOF, then decided to pull away, and now fighting again. Talk about this kid and his journey through mixed martial arts, and what you think of what he's been able to accomplish.
I think he's just an inspiration no matter what. I mean, and then he shows that he's obviously got some talent, some God-given talent, and work ethic that's obviously there. And the wrestling background certainly helps with that. So I apologize. There's a car getting burglarized apparently here in Houston and outside of a restaurant that we're eating at. So, but yeah, Nick's a hard-nosed, tough guy, and has adapted well with the tools that he's got. Well, he's been trouncing people before he hung him up, and I'm glad to see him back.
Mm-hmm. And talk a little bit about Sonny Luque, his opponent on Friday night, 8-6 overall. A lot of we've interviewed fighters before that have fought Nick Newell and asked them the question, do you feel any sort of pressure, I guess, because of the opponent that you're fighting, and everybody gives tons of respect to Nick Newell, but what we hear out of them coming out of the fight is, I just didn't believe he could perform like he does. What have you learned about Sonny Luque?
Well, Sonny Luque's a heavy-handed guy. He's very tough, and has experience in Bellator, so he's been to some big shows, and not going to be intimidated by Nick Newell. He's going to come out slugging, I think, and I think it'll be a very interesting fight. It's not an easy comeback fight for Nick Newell by any means, considering Nick's been off for so long. So I think it's a good test for Nick, to be honest with you. We're going to know right away where he's at.
Pat Miletich, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He is the color commentator for Access TV Fights. And tomorrow night, LFA 35 is headed your way. Now, Access TV, if you have DirecTV like Goz and I, it is Channel 340. Lock it in for 9 p.m. Eastern start time on most Fridays. They have an incredible schedule. It's not just LFA. It's CES, Lion Fight. It's ridiculous. It's a great channel. Lots of combat sports. All right, Dan Tom, our fight analyst, what do you have for Pat Miletich?
Hey, Pat, I just want to say you're doing a great job, and as someone who was lucky enough, I used to train under the Extreme Couture Amateur team, was lucky enough to have you coach a couple of practices. You've taught some things that still serve me well, even on this side of things today.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Well, on that note, let me ask you, now that I have to, kind of on this side of things, I have to watch a lot of footage, and watching these up-and-comers have been a big part of my tape study. And, of course, that's going to bring me to LFA and, of course, bring me to your work. And one thing I notice is, I don't know if you mean to, but you seem to have a great radar for when somebody, I don't want to say is going to be somebody, because that's not how you're projecting it to be, but really spotting real talent and whatnot, especially going back and watching this footage in hindsight and seeing your calls on it live. So let me ask you, Pat, is that some kind of read you've always had going back to your days as coaching, or does it go even back to your days in your own athletic endeavors, that analytical mindset, and has that helped?
I think just all the years of growing up wrestling in Iowa, seeing the work ethic, they obviously have to have the work ethic, and it's kind of a rare combo of people that have the athletic ability, the work ethic, the intelligence. They've got to be thinkers, and it's something that you just get a gut feeling about. And the only time I was ever wrong was about Tim Sylvia, where Tim came to my gym from Maine and was 340 pounds, whatever he was, and he I mean, honestly, everybody knows this. He cried after every practice, and he got roughed up a lot, and couldn't jump rope. Literally could not jump rope. And Jens Pulver, Matt Hughes, Jeremy Horn, and I were sitting in my office one day, and they were all saying, "Dude, this guy, I don't know, man." And I go, "You know what? I can't tell him to go home because he tried so hard." That's the one thing that I care about is, I would much rather train somebody who can barely win any fights, but they give 110% every day in practice, than train a world champion he's so gifted that it just comes easy to him and he's lazy. I don't want anything to do with a guy like that. I have no desire to work with somebody that has no work ethic. So Tim was a guy that literally worked his ass off and made it, won a world title, and then won it again. And, so that's the only guy that I've ever been wrong on for the most part.
Goes, what do you have for Pat Miletich?
Pat, we just talked to Jorge Gurgel, and he was kind of giving us some insight on now he does some translating there with UFC, and he was talking about how he would prepare, but at the end of the day, he would just go back to just being himself. When it comes to you, when you first started broadcasting, what was that balance for you? And can you kind of subscribe to the same thing? Because I think that's one of the things that draws people to your broadcasts is you're just kind of yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to try and be anybody else. I'm there to be the why guy. Why is it happening? What could one guy be doing to change the outcome of a certain situation or position? What's one guy doing great? And I try not to criticize too much. Now and then I'll get caught where I can criticize guys, and I don't want to do that because, for instance, tennis broadcasters are notorious about chopping down, the person that's losing a match. I mean, that's all they'll do the whole time. So I try not to do that too much. And I try to be honest with you, while I'm adding hopefully some knowledge to people who are fairly new to the sport, maybe don't understand the intricacies of everything, where I can help educate them. But also the guys that are fighting, hopefully they'll go back and watch it and say to themselves, okay, I get what he's saying. I see what I'm doing wrong. I need to fix that. You know what I mean? So I'm just there to be the why guy and try and educate people a little bit. And, as far as going back and being myself, for a while there, I was doing ESPN, Showtime Sports, and Access TV all at the same time, and I was running a gym and had a law enforcement military training company, and I just couldn't keep up. Things were so chaotic, and that's why I pushed coaching off the plate. I reached my goals, as an athlete and as a coach, and I love the sport. I want to be involved in it in one way or another, but I'm certainly not going to be an Al Bernstein level broadcaster. He's a Hall of Famer, Kenny Rice kind of guy, play-by-play guys. Ron Crook, the knowledge that they have to have, and they have to quarterback the broadcast. It's a very difficult job. So my job is just telling people what I already know.
Shit, if I had a Hall of Fame, you'd already be in. Don't sell yourself short. It's you have an excellent gift of the gab.
Well, I appreciate it.
The last time you were in here, you talked a little bit about marathons and what you had to go through and all that. And I swear to you, at least once a month, I get asked about it. Can you point our listeners to maybe like a documentary or something that they can watch on those marathons?
I tell you what, one of the coolest ones that they could watch is on the Barkley Marathon. That is a 100-mile race through mountains in Tennessee. It was started over 30 years ago by a guy who watched the news, and he was already a hiker and ultra marathoner before anybody even did it. And James Earl Ray, the guy that assassinated Martin Luther King, had escaped from prison, and he had made it through that wilderness there in that part of Tennessee. I think he made it maybe 10 miles in 24 hours. And this guy said to himself, 10 miles? That's a joke. I could have made it 100 miles in 24 hours. He's worthless, right? So he goes, I'm going to start one. So it's such an amazing event that you don't even know how to get in it. You don't even know where to send the letter to get in it. And if you can figure that out and write a good enough letter why you should be let in, if you're accepted, they write you a condolence letter. So, it grieves me to inform you that you will be competing in the Barkley Marathon, and you don't even know when it's going to start. It's somewhere in the 24-hour period, and everybody's camped out at the gate of the national park there, or the state park, and when the founder of the race lights a cigarette, that's when it starts, right? Everybody grabs their stuff and takes off. And it's, my running coach, David Clark, who's finished Leadville 7 or 8 times. He's finished the Death Valley race 135 miles through 131-degree heat. And, he's finished, I think, 35 or 40 100-plus mile runs. The guy's a beast. That's his goal, to finish Barkley. And there's actually, I think, 14 people have finished it out of over 1,000 that have attempted it. Whoa. But there's actually one guy that's finished it 3 times. The guy's an animal. So David Clark, that's his goal, is to finish the Barkley. And he went out there and trained in the park and did some of the loops where the loops had been previously, because the course changes every year. And he went out and did it, and he said he lives in Colorado and runs mountains like it's a joke, and he goes, this is absolutely brutal out here, man. He goes, it's tough, and the way that you navigate through it, you can only use a compass, and you cannot use GPS, none of that stuff. You can't wear a GPS watch, nothing, and you have to find your bib number. You have to find books in the forest that correspond. You have to tear the page out that corresponds with your bib number. So I think there's 13 books hidden in the forest, and you have to navigate your way to them, tear out that page, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and then keep going. And it's nuts.
Crazy.
It's nuts.
Wow, great stuff, Pat.
So that's the Barkley Marathon. So if anybody wants to watch something really cool, that's a good one. And there's a ton of them on YouTube also about Barkley and Leadville and the Badwater, which is the race through Death Valley, Western States. All those hardcore races.
Pat, thanks for the time. I know you got to get going. We will be tuning in to LFA 35 tomorrow with Newell and Luque at the Arena Theater in Houston, Texas. 9 p.m. start time on Access TV. It was really, really great to catch up with you, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Folks, next week, too, it'll be LFA 36, in 2 weeks, Simon versus Zani at Cabazon, California. So that's kind of like SoCal is our neck of the woods, really, really close to where our parents live. And I know we have a lot of listeners in that area. So if you want to catch LFA and you're always jealous of, they've been in LA down at the StubHub Theater. I was there in Carson, California. They've been in the OC at the hangar in the OC. Now they're coming to the Inland Empire. So that's in 2 weeks, LFA 36, Cabazon, California. Thank you very much to Sean from Access TV for hooking that one up. And shout out to myself for hooking up the Jorge Gurgel interview. Let's take this last break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Get in the queue because the second hour will be fun. We'll take some calls. We'll talk about the latest news in mixed martial arts. And we'll also do our daily debate. What's that number, George? It's 866. Let me say it again. 866-522-2846.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been. And because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
It's the Impossible Springsteen ticket, and we're giving them away to SiriusXM subscribers. SiriusXM E Street Radio is filling all the seats for the March 14th performance of Springsteen on Broadway. Grand prize winners will get airfare, hotel, and tickets to this exclusive show. For official rules and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Springsteen. No additional purchases necessary. Now, a lot of times, you guys hear these promos, and I think a lot of you are like, yeah, I heard it before. And then you wait, and then it's too late. March 14th is coming around the corner. And the reason I know this is because that's a big day for us. It's kind of like the official of our March Madness season. So I know that we have about a week. Don't wait too long for this giveaway. SiriusXM.com/Springsteen. If you're a Springsteen fan, who wouldn't want to win those seats, right?
Right. Do you guys remember which television actress was the one that got pulled up on stage in that music video?
Courtney Cox?
Yeah.
She's the one.
I'm blowing your
did you know
mind
that?
today, aren't I?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
The girl from Friends?
Yeah.
In the Springsteen video, Dancing in the Dark, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
He actually, remember he pulls a girl from the audience?
Yeah.
And it turns out that's Courtney Cox.
How
who
old was
went
she at
on
that
to
time?
Friends fame.
Wow.
Well, that was a mid-'80s song, and Friends started after that. So
She's also in Family Ties, right?
I'd say she's about 50 right now, so subtract 30 years. She was probably 20 when that happened.
She was Alex P.
Oh, was she?
Girlfriend, too, right?
Oh, yeah, I think you might be right. What happened to Mallory? She was a babe.
She popped up not too long ago.
Did she?
Yeah, I don't remember what
she wasn't one of those that fell apart like the girl from
No.
Different Strokes.
Everybody on that series fell apart.
They all.
Pretty much.
Did you guys ever see the
Except for
movie?
Sam.
Arnold's no longer with us, right?
Arnold's gone.
Yeah. What about Willis?
Willis was really bad, but he's still around.
Wow, okay. I figured he would have been gone.
Sam was in Terminator 2. Did you know that?
No, what did he do there?
Yeah,
he's the guy that rides on the back.
Oh, wow, okay. All right.
You know, they're always going to the ATM and pulling out money.
That makes sense. Yeah,
He's the other kid.
Yeah, okay. See, I love this.
You like those?
I love this. But the Springsteen song reminds me of this movie, Place Beyond the Pines. You guys seen it? Probably not.
It's a movie?
Yeah, Place Beyond the Pines. It's good.
That's not a good sign.
Go see it.
Well, what's it about? You got 30 seconds.
It's really cool. It's about a story of a guy who robs a bank and something happens to him. And the story, it kind of isn't done because his son kind of goes on and runs into the same characters his dad
But
did.
Springsteen's not in it. He just reminds you of.
No, they use the music really well and montages really well made film. Was up for some awards. Place Beyond the Pines.
I'm trying to get better at concentration.
Character development.
A lot of character development.
Oh,
yeah.
last
Good
night
character
another assassination of Gianni Versace.
How many episodes are they in?
Because I had watched last week's on Tuesday, and yesterday was the day that it actually goes. I think they're on 8, and it's 10 total.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
it's,
all right,
it's like an FX series. You know how
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy would give you like 12 or 14 or whatever. It's like that. All right, so we will be back in about 2.5 minutes. Just got to pay some bills. We'll open up the phone lines, 866-522-2846. We'll talk about the latest news in mixed martial arts. So stay close. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Rush 93.
doom ba bum bum bum. I got a girl named Sue. She knows just what to do. I got a girl named Sue. She knows just what to do. She rock to the east, she rock to the west, but she's the gal that I love best. To the booty, oh Rudy. To the booty, oh Rudy. Ooh, to the booty, oh Rudy. To the booty, oh Rudy. To the booty, oh Rudy. Oh, wop, bop, loom, bop, lump, bump,
Here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. That's what I'm talking about. Who recommended that song? Who picked that song, Danny Olkers?
That was Ghost. This weird
You picked
listener
the
named Ghost.
Well, it was offered to me, and I said we got to do that one, but I didn't pick it.
Okay. And then the Smoke the Joint was JD and the IE? I think it was Bob Marley or something like that.
No?
No, that was Sublime.
Sublime, okay.
Yeah.
And then the first one, that horrific sound that was being made as
Oh.
we were going out to commercial, that's got to be the Ford.
That was Ford, yes. It's metal. Some metal from
How
Ford.
I just don't understand it, man. There, I like rock and heavy metal. It's to some point, but when it's like that, I mean, it sounds like a cow that's dying, and you throw him out of a spaceship with a lav mic, and that's the noise he's making all the way down to Earth. Until he splatters. How is that music?
You know, it's something.
You can't get into the words, so if you're into lyrics, you can't be like, "Oh yeah, I'm feeling him. Yeah, that's what love's all about, baby." Or yeah, I get him from behind too, baby. I mean, there's none of that going on. He's just yelling. There's not the instrumental. What's going on there? I mean, what do you do? Like, I just don't. I don't understand what's happening.
I don't know. I mean, I like some.
Or
of
am
it,
I
but
crazy
not
and
that
old?
way.
Am I crazy and old? Just say you're crazy and old. You don't get it. There's something to that type of music.
Well, I get
Maybe
that
a
music.
little crazy
but
and old, but not I mean, because if you go out here and you grab 20 people, I think you're gonna find like 5 maybe, right, that are
into that.
I would say so.
I don't think those people would be into being grabbed in the first place. But yeah, but after that point, if you ask them into the metal after you grabbed them. But
You're into that?
I am, and I've been in some bands where I've had to do some type of some screaming myself. But I will say, I think it is something you have to be in the mood for, because like my
Play
car
it, Danny, as Danny's talking.
because my car is one of those autoplay things, for example, and I don't have many of these songs on there. But for whatever reason, my car is a default thing where when it picks up my phone and wants to play music, it goes to the same song over and over again, and it's like the most volatile sounding song. Where even I'm like and I like it too.
What's the song?
Between the Buried and Me, Mordecai.
Play that, Danny.
I
Or
think
play
I
something.
think I know why.
Okay.
I think it goes alphabetically.
Maybe.
So it always
That's
goes
a
to the
B.
top.
I have a lot of A's. I've got like a ton of AFI. AFI is like the band I listen to most,
Actually,
or have the most of.
All right, I'm gonna see how long I
this
can
part's
last.
cool. You know, like
This part's all right. I'm a straight shooter, man. This part's all right.
Little double bass.
No gimmicks
snare
here or
hits.
nothing.
You know, this guy's
Is that
actually
the song you chose or the one
no,
Ford chose?
No, it's just Ford.
That was when we went out to commercial the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not as bad as I thought. It's still not my taste, but I guess I was able to hear a little bit more instrument. I mean, there's just I know that we played it before, and I know that Fool has asked for it, and it's where some guy's just going. Like, I don't know, man. You don't. Nothing's going on. You know, like I could just see people racing to their cars to turn it off, change the channel. What the fuck, you know? Like, and then all of a sudden we lose listeners because of that. You think my Chicks comment was bad? That's what can make us lose listeners. Anybody's tuning in for the first time, and they think a bunch of maniacs are hosting.
Yeah, Ford. What are you trying to do to this show?
Ford. All right, so it's time for the daily debate with a twist. That's why I was going like this. I'm looking up my sleeve. All right, here's the question. This is the way we worded it today. Which recent Bellator free agent signee with the UFC most have benefited from re-signing? Your options are Lorenz Larkin, Rory McDonald, Matt Mitrione, and Gegard Mousasi. Almost 3,000 souls voted for this. 2,885 to be exact. But I was thinking about this on the way up. Too easy. So goes, other than Rory McDonald, which one of these would the UFC should they have benefited from re-signing?
Actually, Rory was my third choice.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was debating between Gegard Mousasi and Matt Mitrione.
Tell me why.
Matt Mitrione, just because it's a division that they need help in, and whether or not they believe Matt Mitrione can capture a title, or they can use him as a name to put over other fighters, he would help for the business side. But I ended up picking Gegard Mousasi just because when he left, a lot of people were saying he could have got a title matchup, or he would have been one away. And Gegard had turned a corner. He's now Darth Gegard. Right now he's talking smack.
Right.
I loved his persona before he left. I thought he'd fit perfectly right now.
All right, well, that blew up in my face there. Dan Tom, other than Rory McDonald, who would the UFC have benefited?
I will go ahead and say Gegard Mousasi as well, but it's weird because you could argue that he was number one, kind of like similar to what Goes was saying. But the reason why I didn't put him as my number one or even up there is because the middleweight division really got a logjam placed upon it as far as the UFC goes, right? Where we saw a bunch of contenders, and it almost was better that he, granted maybe the matchups could have gone a little better for him in Bellator, but as far as the move goes, it was better that he, kept moving forward and doing his thing. So I would say Gegard Mousasi would be up there, but that middleweight logjam just put a damper on it. Matt Mitrione is also right up there for me because heavyweight is not a very deep division. They could use their talents, but I'm not sure if Matt Mitrione does as well in the UFC as he does in Bellator too.
Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, if I'm throwing the guys under the bus, I figured they would take Mousasi and Gegard, and I would take the difficult one, which would be Lorenz Larkin.
Okay.
Now Lorenz, when he left, if I'm not mistaken, it was around that time where either Lawler was still champ or he may have just lost it. Of course, it would have benefited me to study this, but this is a weird twist that we're putting on today's Daily Debate. But I always felt like that was a card he just misplayed. He's not a trash talker. He's a guy that goes out there and does his job. He did exit winning 4 of his previous 5, and I thought he had an exciting style of fighting. So I thought the UFC could have probably paid him. I don't think he was one of those that was looking for a couple $100,000 per fight. Maybe $100,000. Who knows? I don't know what Lorenz Larkin, but he didn't strike me as one of those guys that was you were going to sit there and go, okay, we really have to study this and crunch the numbers. He was just a guy that was exciting, always delivered, and had some key wins that you could build around. So I know that Rory McDonald, he just jumps out at you because of that win over Tyron Woodley. The fact that he still had youth. Yeah. His fights, man. He's had some really, really good ones. So it was really, really a great question, and I really, really dig all your guys' answers. I don't think there's obviously a right or wrong, but the results went with McDonald at 66%.
Right.
Yeah. Coming in second place was Gegard Mousasi at 26%, Matt Mitrione at 6%, and Lorenz Larkin at 2%. So anyway, that's our Daily Debate for today on Thursday, March 8th. All right, so what do you think of GSP? He's talking about what should happen next for him. And he disqualified Nick Diaz because he already beat him, and Tyron Woodley because he just feels like he's not a name for him yet, and he wasn't a big fan of his last couple of fights.
Yeah. Well, that's the matchup that I would lean towards because I would want him to say he's talking about legacy, right? That's all we always hear from him. Being a multi-division champ is big, but kind of coming back to a division that a lot of people felt like maybe he may have been running away from, I think would make a really bold statement, especially taking a guy out like Tyron Woodley. That would have been my choice, but, I've said this from day one. I see him getting matched up with Conor McGregor at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of just read through what George is saying. I just think he doesn't want to fight a younger him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think so. I mentioned Pat Miletich. He either had 4 or 5 title defenses. I know it's one or the other. Shamrock, Miletich. Yeah, they had 4 or 5. I always flip-flop those two. And when we interviewed Woodley once back in November, we noted that he had gotten to his 3rd title defense. And once you start getting into that elite company is when you can really start looking and saying, could he be destined for the Hall of Fame or not? Woodley, personality, I know some of you don't jive with him, social media, or whatever. Or the last couple of his fights he really gets judged harshly for. and deservedly, because of just a lot of them, strategic or not, or whatever he has to say, it wasn't crowd pleasing. So I get that. But he's also had some very crowd pleasing fights, and those just seem to get swept under the rug. But whatever. I'm not here to defend or be his white knight or anything. But that's the fight, man. The all-time great welterweight against the guy that's been at the top for a while now is the fight for GSP. The fact that he's saying that, no, Woodley won't, no, that just to me sounds like I don't want a difficult matchup. And you're probably right. He probably will fight Conor McGregor. The UFC will make a ton of money. Both those guys will make a ton of money. But I know George sees it as a very favorable win for him. It doesn't mean that if Woodley's not available, it should be Nick Diaz. No, that ship sailed too. Nick Diaz hasn't won since 2011, and he's not interested in fighting. He's only interested in fighting big money fights. But right now, George St. Pierre is a quality fighter who's still on that upkick of being a champion or just vacated, having won. I just don't think Nick deserves that. Unfortunately,
I don't even know what Nick would return.
Yeah, that's not even that's a whole nother leg of the conversation.
How do you see what George is angling for? Because it sounds like he's not done in our sport, but what do you think's next for him?
It just sounds like, and again, I thought about him. Like, was I rude yesterday by saying that a great that deserves so much respect was talking out of both sides of his mouth? No, he can still be a great, and he can still talk out of both sides of his mouth because that's what he is. He's a great, but from what I heard, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. He wants special matchups, but those special matchups are the names he kind of X'd out. And I'm with you guys on both notes where even though I might not want to see it, McGregor and GSP feels inevitable. But I'm also with you guys on the note that it feels so right to have Woodley versus GSP. And I've said it before. I said it in my article I did a couple weeks ago for Tyron Woodley's title and his potential suitors that it would be the perfect matchup to also kind of, if they wanted to close out a 170 and start a 165, because a 165 would meet an end of 170. And what upsets me more about the fact that a Conor and GSP would happen is the fact that people are throwing around, which I guess makes sense in a way, that would be the 165 inaugural bout. And that upsets me because that takes away from Woodley's title. That takes away from the prestige of the history of the 170-pound division. And again, circling back to why George St. Pierre should be taking this fight, a history that he should be respecting because he's a part of it, and he's still in play. He's the biggest part of that division's history. We're just going to ignore that because, again, if you look at George St. Pierre's the matchups that he hasn't done well against, and he learned from that and smartly picked his matchups, guys who could defend takedowns and or had knockout power, he didn't like. He didn't like in those matchups. He didn't do well in them, even the ones that he quote-unquote won, Johnny Hendricks, BJ Penn the first time, right? They did not go very well for George, those fights. And he's smart. And that's what's so frustrating because we see him come back. Now he's come back. Now that fear is over. You've come back. You've beat the odds of a 4-year delay. Not only that, he came back looking better than ever, guys.
Better than ever?
He did, in my opinion.
Wow.
It took him a while to get going, but we saw him incorporate those Kyoshkin karate that he had in the beginning that he seemingly kind of forgot about after he got knocked out, right?
Slow to me, but I know
I
know he packed some muscle.
But rewatching it, just being an older guy coming out of 4 years and being able to hit. I mean, there was points where he would hit a Superman jab, spinning heel kick, changes levels, taking Michael Bisping down. I mean, it made it take him a while to get up to that gear, to get up to third gear. But once he was in third gear, he was incorporating stuff we have not seen from him in 8 years, but he was incorporating it with the smarts, the fundamentals, and the science of today's game. That was amazing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't supposed to win that fight. He wasn't supposed to look that way if he won the fight, and he did. And that's what's almost more frustrating because as a fan of watching this guy fight, and we're like, oh, I don't know if I can beat this guy. And I actually think even though I think Woodley should be favored in that matchup, I think George would have a good shot at beating Woodley. If we saw that George moving outworking Woodley, over 5 rounds and having, even if the wrestling he couldn't go to, he could still kind of outwork him and out volume on the feet. Like, there's definite paths to victory, and it's very frustrating that if what he says is true, he's not even considering making returns to these divisions to have his name on it.
You brought up something that stuck in my head, and that's power punchers.
Okay.
The night that he fought Johnny Hendricks, you remember what he looked like on that little dais up there? And just, not only was he bruised up really bad, but he just looked dejected, almost like, I can't believe how hard I just got hit.
Yeah.
I think ever since that fight, he's never wanted any.
And who was right around the corner? Lawler.
Yep.
And the possibility of McDonald.
Right.
Which is a teammate, and who knows if if it's a teammate who has gotten the best of him behind the scenes, or he knew that that teammate had the capability of getting him on a good night, because at some point they would have had to make that fight if George stuck around.
Yep.
He didn't, so that was that. But Lawler was right around the corner.
Thompson.
He knew that, Thompson.
Same
Another
theory.
rematch with Hendricks, because, it was so close, and if Johnny positioned himself, that could be around the corner, and Woodley as well. So, and it's not to say that George couldn't have won them all, because he always proved us right, proved us wrong, or at least the people that doubted against him. But either way, him coming back, I just think it needs to be Tyrone Woodley, or if it's McGregor, then I guess it's almost like McGregor Mayweather. It's just a boatload of money for two guys to make for a fight that really doesn't matter in any division. It won't even matter if it's for the inaugural 165-pound division. And what sucks is I'd be so excited. I'd be one of the most excited people on this planet if they opened up a 165-pound division, just not with those guys. I don't know that they earned it.
Here's a quick hypothetical. You guys just said it doesn't matter to you. So what would you rather do? Would you rather pay the 50 or the upgraded 54, 59, or whatever it is? It's like $60 now, and it'll be at least that if McGregor fought GSP. They would, I could even see them trying to do a price uppage. But let's just say $60. Would you rather see $60 for that matchup, or would you rather have GSP and Connor invite you to like their next wedding or some type of an event, where you like the mafia style, you bring the envelope and you get to go to a dinner party with them, eat, and you just hand them the $50 and you save the division, you save everybody having to sit through that. The divisions can carry on, but instead you take your money for the pay-per-view and you go to a wedding, because that's what it feels like. It feels like that fight's not deciding anything. In other words, might be a poor analogy, but it feels like that fight is pretty much, they want a bonus money and they want to coat their resumes and their bank accounts and make that look fluffy. That's cool. Great, guys. Here you go. Here's that. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're not getting much accomplished. It doesn't feel like we're doing anything for the sport. It doesn't feel like we're representing a certain division. It doesn't feel like any kind of real pride or legacy is being held, because both guys are reluctant to even step in there. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I like both these guys, but let's
either way, I'm paying. I'd rather just see them fight.
The problem is if you walk out and ask those guys,
they're
gonna be down as hell.
That's true.
What, that guy Conor McGregor against that GSP guy? Oh man.
True, poor analogy. I guess it just feels like what would we be accomplishing? And I get that. But
I guess what we'd be accomplishing is opening a new division. It's just that to open it would be two people that I guess I could be convinced that GSP deserves it. But he got an incredible pass to just fight ahead of all those killers at 185, and it was a big money fight in New York. It served its purpose, and that was that. Bisping was just as excited to fight GSP,
right,
and stay away from Jacare, Yoel, and everybody else, as GSP was to fight Bisping and not Woodley. You know what I mean? Because I think he felt like Woodley would just be a tougher matchup for him. So they served each other's purpose. The fight happened. One guy made history. But I don't know. He turns around, he vacates, to now just walk into another title matchup. I mean,
and that was another thing too.
Great, but we always talk about the fighters getting prostituted by the pimps, which is the promoters. I guess this is the fighters pimping the promotion out, and saying, okay, we're in this to make some money. We know you're going to make some money, but guess what? We're going to make some money too, and we're going to call our shots. And this is what we're going to ask for, and maybe we should applaud them for getting it.
Yeah, man. It's tough not to, but then I don't know. Do you guys kind of feel insulted when they say like, oh well, I gave up? I mean, I gave up. I don't want to clog the divisions. That's why I gave up the title so fast. And
I like that. I like that he did that.
But is it one of those things where it's kind of perspective, where it's kind of like he's looking at the silver lining of it, whereas it's like, well, no, you still clogged the division by taking the fight and drawing out the negotiations to take the fight in the first place. Like there were contenders in the queue that whole time.
Like March of 2017, he goes, I'll be ready to go in November. We're like, oh fuck, are you serious?
Yeah.
You won't even be ready to go by July, International Fight Week. You'll be ready to go in November.
Right. So he can take 8 months to make a fight that shouldn't have happened. But the fact that he only took 1 month to give up the title is supposed to forget about all that. Oh wow, so thoughtful. You're right. Thank you, sir.
Hey, by the way, of all these names we've thrown out there, I don't mean to disrespect Robert Whittaker, because he's a really, really amazing champion. But GSP's got some skills that make Whittaker beatable, in my opinion. Now, Whittaker's not easy to take down, but he's a lot easier to take down than a few. I think you're going to have an easier time taking down Whittaker than Brunson, Romero, you know, and if you do get Jacare to the ground, which is not easy in itself, you get in a whole world of hurt there with Jacare on the ground. For some reason, I thought he would actually consider the Whitaker fight, despite the fact that he's got power. You know what I mean? So does Woodley, but Woodley's got some wrestling, and he's not going to be as easy to take down. I don't know why GSP sold himself short.
The size, dude. They're just too big.
But Whitaker was also he's an undersized middleweight. He came up from welterweight.
I
don't think he's on a great run, but I never saw him as unbeatable.
I think on paper you're right, George, but the problem is we saw the Yoel Romero fight play out, where we saw Robert Whitaker against top athletes, a top wrestler who is bigger than him, and that's the problem. Whereas I think Whitaker, if you look at the one fight that really he struggled with, was where he got stopped against Stephen Thompson, and granted, Whitaker probably wasn't taking shots as well. Not to take anything away from Stephen Thompson's power accuracy. But you look at it, I got to imagine it is going to be a counter fighter to beat Whitaker, because you think about it, he can compete with the best wrestlers, the best strikers, the fastest guys, the strongest guys. He has that perfect build, right? He's quick, nimble, good acceleration off the line. He's got that perfect car at 185. Yeah. So you're not going to out-perfect car him, right? You're not going to out-athlete him. Kind of like Go said, George probably doesn't want to face a younger athlete, right? A younger version of him. So it's going to be a guy that sits back, waits, and counters him, that forces Whitaker to get out of his game, that forces Whitaker to make something happen, that forces Whitaker to put himself out there. I think that's the kind of guy that's probably going to beat him. But yeah, I mean, you could argue that George could have cashed out by taking that matchup and doing one of those things where you take the guy off of an injury, right? Coming back from an injury, you do one of those moves. We've seen the greatest do that move. And, so
I just don't see who he really wants at this point. I guess he's just angling for McGregor, because
he's doing the same thing.
He does something for himself. But it'll be one of those where we'll all be along for the ride. They'll make a lot of money. The UFC will make a lot of money. We'll have a lot of traffic. But we'll enjoy covering the event.
Right. No,
but I think deep down we'll all just be we're just going through motions here. You know what I mean? For the sake of a lot of people making money and us getting good traffic. And I don't feel like a fulfillment like I do, for example, with Ferguson and Khabib in a month. Mm-hmm. That's going to be an awesome fight. Finally, there's some stability to 155 pounds. Like, finally, there's
two guys with a body of work colliding.
Yeah, and history. There's history there, because goddamn, isn't Ferguson 13-1 as a lightweight? How amazing is that, by the way?
It's insane.
That is crazy. Insane. And then the other guy, he's undefeated in general with 8 or 9 wins in the UFC, 25-0 overall. Wow,
most competitive division right there too.
Conor beat GSP. Pretty big deal, right?
Yeah,
especially for Conor's legacy.
Yeah, 100%.
But if GSP beat Conor, it should be a big deal.
Wouldn't be as big of a deal as Conor beat GSP.
I get
Smaller
that it's
guy.
not as big, but why is it not even close to that level? Because look at the shit that Conor's done. Should be a big deal.
No,
we don't look at it that way.
Conor beating GSP is a big deal.
No, that is for sure. But why isn't it as much on the other side?
The size.
Think so?
Well, for me, that's the big thing. Yeah, one guy's just a clearly bigger fighter, and he recognizes that he's a beast on the ground, and the other guy isn't. And so to me, I feel like it's just a bigger guy picking on a smaller guy and knowing, oh my God, on top of it all, he's got a glaring weakness that I can capitalize on. So it just looks like, it doesn't look right to me like that way. It doesn't look like, GSP's, I consider him let's just call him like a god in our sport, or a Mount Rushmore guy, or a hero, or whatever you want to say. At that pedestal, man, those guys, the ones that are there, should be doing things that we are in awe of. I'm not in awe of him beating GSP. I am in awe of him coming back and taking on Tyron Woodley.
Can't we do that with TJ and
or
DJ
Whitaker?
Then? Huh? Can't we look at it like that with TJ and DJ then?
Okay, so I'm not as big of a fan of TJ dropping down now as I was when he was willing to do it to try and stop DJ from breaking the record. He wanted that to be iconic for DJ, and so he felt like he could be a stopgap, because he was a bigger guy who was a little undersized for 35, but still felt like he could do 25. And out of respect to his friend Joseph Benavidez, he never did, because that was his teammate's place. But that teammate was out for 9 months with the injury, who, by the way, he's just been signed to fight Pettis. So that's good to see Joe be back. So he saw an opportunity there, and Garbrandt was hurt too. So I appreciated his hustle there. Now, the fact that fight's been talked about a little bit more, champion versus champion, we're in the money fights stages of the sport era. I guess I can kind of get into it, especially if they're on the same card as Stipe as Cormier. But I was a little bit more into it when he wanted to stop it.
Did that old man cigar get you? It got me.
I don't know. I think it was just from talking, and I must have caught a lot of air.
Yeah, that was a dude that was smoking a cigar right here.
Was it there?
And as soon as he started doing it, because we're not used to it anymore, because you can't smoke in here.
That was our karma for bringing up
Old man.
Robert De Niro.
A couple things here, guys. Jimmy Rivera with a win over Marlon Moraes, it makes me the #1 contender. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, all right.
I disagree. I think it depends on his win. Because...
Even if it's a decision?
Well,
he looked good?
I'm going to treat all guys as who they are for what we know.
Okay.
So, Dominic Cruz is hurt. He hasn't taken a fight or anything. It sounds like he's getting close, but I'm going to take him as someone who's hurt. I feel like Cody and Assunção have a case, So not only does Rivera need to win, I think he needs to win and look impressively and hope that the loser or the winner of Garbrandt and Assunção doesn't win, because Assunção holds a card, and it's the trilogy card versus Dillashaw. Garbrandt holds the card, even though he got smoked. He's a former champion, and there's heat, and the UFC loves heat. Rivera, I don't know that he brings anything to the table other than he's won 20 in a row, which is very impressive. But I'm talking about when you're building a championship fight, you better look good and hope these other guys falter. And then when you look good, the UFC, trust me, again, Don King, hey, look who we have here, And if you don't, they go, well, look who we have over here, and they'll play whatever the hot hand is. So I think I agree with you guys, but I think he needs to take it to a step further and look impressive and hope that before that fight doesn't happen, Cruz doesn't go, I'm healthy, by the way, because he's always going to have some clout, too, in the division.
You're looking at it differently, though. Like, I feel like he is the #1 contender, but you're right. If Garbrandt were to starch, I'd say it'd be him. I think it's just going to flip-flop depending on who's hot at the moment.
It's going to be dependent on which fight happens first. Like, I think the Rivera one happens first, so I would say that's why I would say yes, because if he wins big, they're going to be like, oh, he's #1 contender. Now, the next fight could be next week, and Cody Garbrandt could ice Assunção, then he could take that title very, very well. So I guess it's kind of how you look at it.
Assunção beats Garbrandt, I wonder what he, where he stands.
I would say that too, because he's another one of those quiet contenders. But I guess let me ask you about this, because I agree with what you said, especially from the promotional aspect. But you're probably the best person to ask, because you do the rankings for Junkie. From a strictly rankings perspective, if rankings ideally are supposed to be a contendership queue and not politics, where does Rivera land if he finishes, or just an impressive win? We'll just leave it an impressive win. Rivera gets over Moraes. Just from the rankings perspective, Georgia Junkie, where are you putting him?
Even though I also believe that the heat factor weighs a lot, or just stick to the rankings?
Yeah, I'm curious, because I'm just
so
curious.
Dillashaw's 1, Garbrandt's 2, Cruz is 3, Assunção's 4, and Rivera's 5. If he wins, and they were to go, we're going with Rivera versus Dillashaw, I'd have no problem with it, because it is a fresh matchup.
Right.
Garbrandt versus Dillashaw is not fresh. Dillashaw versus Cruz is not fresh. And then Dillashaw versus Assunção isn't fresh. So in that regard, I guess I'd support it, because he does have a streak, and sometimes we have to inject some of this, new blood into a division.
Right.
I could live with it.
Okay.
I could live with it. But please, look impressive, Rivera, and talk up a good game. Don't just go through the motions. And by no means are we discounting Moraes. We're not tipping our hands here as that being our early pick, because Moraes has been a beast, man. I thought he had a chance to beat Sterling, but I think I went with Sterling. I didn't think he would fuck him up like that, though. Wow. Like, Moraes has really turned a corner since losing to Assunção, but I just said it. Losing to Assunção could hurt him here. Wow, what a crowded division, isn't it?
If you're a business, though, are you willing to walk away from the possibility that, what if Garbrandt were to he just got those rematches, Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt. They're worth so much money.
They are.
That I don't see a guy like Jimmy Rivera bypassing those things. Nobody's going to say, but we got to do Jimmy Rivera, because he doesn't have the same heat the other guys have. So I agree with Dan. I feel like he should be next, but I don't think it'll happen.
So look impressive and talk some smack is the easy formula.
Right.
And hope these other guys don't look good if they win, because someone's going to fight here. I think it's going to be Garbrandt and Assunção.
That's a lot of money between them.
And you got to hope that they don't look good.
I agree with that. And I'm looking at the contenders queue you guys had pulled up, and there's definitely big names in front. So I definitely could side with that. It's just one of those things where I'm seeing a lot of the talk right now in MMA, and a lot of the argument is that at least with the UFC rankings, that the old guard is not getting filtered out properly. Like Jose Aldo is still number 1, for example, like that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? According to, not junkies, but UFCs. So I was just curious on what your take on that was, as far as making sure we're getting the contendership cues correct, and how much politics do you balance it? Because obviously, like you said, you got to balance it a little bit, but how much? I mean, I don't know.
Aldo has a couple things going for him.
Oh, he's number 3. Okay, nice. So that's ours though. That's
he's
ours.
3 with us.
Okay. Yeah.
Holloway's 1. Ortega's 2.
Yep.
3 with us. Tell you what, let's talk about this when we come back.
All right.
You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We'll dive a little bit into this 145-pound discussion. Tell you my thoughts on Aldo and why he still holds a lot of clout. We'll be right back. football.
Do what they say. Your life will be a lot better. Here are Gorgeous and Goes.
Just in time for conference basketball tournament, SiriusXM has 3 channels dedicated to the 3 biggest conferences in college sports. SEC Radio is on channel 374. ACC Radio is on channel 371. Pac-12 Radio is on channel 373. Check them out on your radio or on the SiriusXM app. What was it again? I am crazy because I am lazy.
I like daisies because I'd be lazies. Like it would be all like everything would be really really short.
Would you ever take an improv class?
Yeah,
They're
Just
fun.
to see? Are they?
Yeah. I've done quite a few in my day.
And they just go, you're a florist, and Goes just bumped into your car, like, and then you guys just like, do you have actual lines or it's all
just like
improv?
fun games. Like
How much is improv?
Just a lot of fun games and stuff. Like acting classes will do it. Some will be like all out. You'll get real creative ones, like you'll see on Whose Line Is It Anyway, where you get like, okay, this is a party. But some will be really like basic, and those are the cooler ones. Where you'll get split it up into twos, and everybody will get the same piece of dialogue. It'll be like, hi, how are you? Good, thank you. What time is it? I'm not sure. What time is it? And it's a very basic, like just like a 10 lines back and forth. Everybody gets the same thing, but you have to perform it a different way, and it shows you it shows you not just the improv, but also shows you that words mean nothing. It's all on how you say something. So like, you know, I got paired up with a girl, so we turned it into a scene of cheating. Like she's waiting, and she's like, hi, and I'm like closing the door. Like, oh, hi. Like she caught me coming in late. How are you? Good. You know, and we made it like you make it into a different. You know what time it is? Do you? You know, and you kind of just you turn it into a
questions only.
Yeah, but everyone gets the same dialogue. Whereas other people, they'll take it and they'll be like, "Oh, 2 people meeting in the park. Hey, do you know what time it is?" And it's a complete different tone. They're using the same lines, but so there's improving emotion, but then there's just improving free for all like lines in like a game format. It's really fun.
You like questions only? Oh, I just started with a question. I thought you were.
There's that game too. You can only questions only. Yeah, questions only.
You and Goes do questions only. Relating to MMA.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Goes.
Who do you got in the next card?
That depends. Who do you think is headlining?
Is that your question for everything?
It could be, but what do you think about the card?
What do you think I think?
That's why I lost. That's why I've lost. Yeah, that took too long. Yeah.
What's the alphabet game? You just have to start your sentence with a letter of the alphabet, right? You want to try that?
Sure.
All right, so we'll go this way. Or you want me to start? Do you know what we're talking about, Dan? Or you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be MMA related, and you have to start your question or answer. It doesn't have to be in question.
Okay.
Starting with the letter of the alphabet that follows. So I'll start with A. Another great card coming up in New York. You excited?
About time.
It could be better, but it could be worse.
What? You said it.
Ah, shit.
We're just with an I.
There we go.
Yeah.
I messed it up again.
We'll give you one more chance.
All
Ready?
right. All
right. A great card they assembled over there in Brooklyn, huh?
Brother, I'm stoked.
You said, geez, I got confused. This is like great. Wait, so we go.
All right, we'll do it again.
Sorry.
All right. You want to play 2 Danny Okers, or are you going to sit it out?
I'm listening to you guys. This is really fun. I'm just going to listen.
All right. So, do you still want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. A lot at stake for Habib and Tony, huh?
Big deal.
I really could see. Fuck!
God
damn it.
Are you purposely trying to mess up the game?
I think so.
ABI.
I'm running out of things to say with the letter A. All right, here we go again.
All right, let's go again.
I have an important question.
All right.
What's your question?
What's your question, Danny?
My important question is, Dan, do you think it's ABI? Like, is that
That's how it goes, right?
alphabet?
That's how it goes, right?
Okay.
All right, just making sure.
All right. Me start again?
Sure.
All right. Answer me this: Habib or Tony?
About time.
Wait a minute. No, hold on a second. About time? What do you mean about time? How does that answer my question? Well, but that didn't really answer my question. Yeah,
right,
stick with the theme here. All right. He's giving some easy ones. He's like,
hey, what do you want from me? I've had to go 4
times. Be as it may. Big Bear is calling me right now. Come on, give us something here. I'm fucking trying to really start conversations. All right. Let's go with Anthony Pettis is on that card that's coming up, right?
Boy, I can't wait to hear what Dan Tom has to say.
Could win, could not.
Definitely.
Edgar's in the mix as well.
From what I hear, but we'll see.
Great job, Goes. Edgar's not in the mix.
Hooray! George points out something again.
I think you guys are getting a little heated.
Jumping to conclusions, Dan.
Hey, wait. You skipped one.
H-I-J.
Yeah, you said J.
I think you guys H-I-J.
You're
yeah.
I.
No. He
H.
said
I said I was I.
Yeah.
Oh, you were I?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I fucked
Yeah, he's
up.
good.
All right, we're terrible at it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the featherweight division and discuss it a little bit. So, Aldo. What was Goes' answer to mine? I go, another great card that's got assembled in Brooklyn. And he goes,
I was just saying because we were like taking so long to get going.
All right, Jose Aldo. So here's the thing. You know what's unfortunate for Jose is he doesn't fight often.
Okay.
And he was rematch guy with Mendez and Holloway, and Edgar. So there hasn't been a lot of fresh matchups to get excited about. But now's the time where the UFC can utilize him. But believe it or not, I still think he has mileage left, even though that was a pretty brutal KO that Holloway gave him. But how about the fact that he actually looked good in Detroit? He looked like he could have almost beaten any other featherweight out there. He just happened to run into an unstoppable force, which is Holloway, who's won 12 or 13 straight. I'm still excited about Jose's prospects. I expect him to come back in Rio, though I'm also the type of guy that says, you've been KO'd, take 6 months off. I think Rio qualifies. I think Rio is May, so it's pretty close. I think Jose still has miles left, and I hopefully it's a hungry Jose that wants to get his title back and a hungry Jose that's making some money. So, I just want him to be motivated and get back in there. Plus, like Goes pointed out in the interview with Jorge Gurgel, Brazilian women are really what's hot right now in terms of the Brazilian landscape and what they have to present. A lot of these stars, the male stars, are aging or just not as relevant. The ones that will be are still developing, or still building their names. Like I really like Costa from the middleweight.
Yeah.
That's one guy that I can really rally behind. But I think Jose is a guy that the UFC realizes. Well, he's still there. He still has tread on the tires. We can still build around him. He has an exciting style, so let's see what comes of it.
And I agree with that too. By the way, I don't think he's done. And you hear how I grade fighters. I don't necessarily let the records or the sheer numbers decide it. But I guess I was wondering, coming from your perspective, because you actually deal with the not matchmaking, but the rankings. I've never dealt with that before. But you see usually two schools of thoughts. Where the one where I explain where you see these established names where they deserve to be there, if we're talking about like, do they deserve to be there? But as far as trying to establish for who's a new challenge or what's relevant new to the contender, it kind of conflicts with that. Whereas you can go too much of the opposite way, right? Where we saw Josh Emmett get skyrocketed in the rankings after that win by UFC. I think what did they jump him up to, like after the Ricardo Lamas when they like 4 or 5 out of nowhere, right? Even though I think he only made weight and competed in the division once up till then.
It was too high, and Cub Swanson pointed that out too.
Right. So I guess that's what that was my question. Like, what's that sweet spot of balance? And I guess that's what y'all have to do,
slow in
right?
and slow out. You have to build a resume. I gave this example a long time ago, and a lot of people laughed me off. And I said, why is it that college football takes 13 to 15 weeks to still sort out? We got to wait for Selection Sunday, or I don't know what they call it, where we all sit around and they have Condoleezza Rice and a bunch of other people, executives, figuring out quality wins, this, that, whatever. Why? Because it took about 13 to 15 weeks to figure out who's the Pac-10 champ and who's the independents, and who's the ACC and SEC champ, and how do we put them in bowl games? How do we put them in these Final Four? It takes that long. Well, how long does it take for a fighter to get to 13 or 15 fights? What's that about? 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I saw that years ago, and that's why I thought it's going to take that long to determine who's really what, and
I
like women's strawweight, bantamweight, it's still moving around. It's still sorting itself out, but we've kind of hit a good spot with them. But I'll let Go say what he thinks should be next. We know that Ortega's fighting Holloway. Right?
Yeah.
We're just sticking with the featherweight division. Aldo, who do you want next for him, Goes? I think I already saw you point to it.
Yeah, the same way you described the point that Jose Aldo's in right now, right? Great fighter, but he lost to the top guy. He needs to kind of rebuild himself. You can say the same thing about Cub Swanson. Great fighter. I know they fought, but it was a really long time ago. It was in the WEC.
Nothing was settled
Put
other
them
than one guy
together.
caught the other. I so much agree with that because it could launch Swanson again.
Yep.
You know, it would hurt Aldo, but Aldo could say, well, especially if it's an exciting fight, Aldo could say, well, we're 1-1. Even if we need to go out and have a little bit of fun, a la Sam Stout and what's the guy's name? Miletich.
Spencer Fisher?
Spencer Fisher. You know, like,
classics.
hey, you know, you always bank those trilogies somewhere and save it for a rainy day. And what it would do is it would allow Lamas to fight Edgar, both coming off vicious KOs, give them some time later in the year, but they've never fought each other.
I like
a lot of
that.
these guys have fought each other, but they've never fought each other. I'd like to see that. See, Lamas has fought Aldo, and Lamas has fought Swanson.
I
And
like
not that
both
I
those,
mind seeing him fight them again. It's just that this is a fresh matchup. Swanson and Aldo, it's an exciting stand-up style, and I think Swanson deserves it. He's paid his dues. He got kneed in 8 seconds or 13 or something like that. I think Aldo would also see it as a favorable matchup as well. But that's cool. I'd like to see. Now, there's another guy making noise, Darren Elkins. You got to give him a big fight. Bektik's coming off a win, and
they fought.
They have. With that, yeah. No, never mind. Yeah, that. I mean, a case could be built for.
But
hey,
yeah,
he was
yeah,
dominating
yeah.
for 2 rounds to give him
Yeah.
a chance. So
Okay.
I take that back. Though I don't want to see it so fresh. What?
Right.
Well, I was gonna say it was like 2.5 almost, really, of
Yeah.
domination.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Katter is fighting soon. Volkankowski's pretty legit. I like him. Maybe Elkins might have to fight a guy like Volkankowski, which would suck for him because he wants to look upwards. But I think the UFC is going to pair up those 6. We'll see. You want to break first or take the calls?
Let's break and then finish with the calls.
You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Rush 93. Stay close, and we'll be right back. We'll
They are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tats. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Stretch marks are the new tats.
Good luck to the UNLV Rebels today, who are about to face Nevada in the second round of the Mountain West tournament.
The only way they can get in is if they win the tournament, or can they be the runner-up? Okay. Good luck to USC tonight. Even though I don't really follow them too closely, I have enough USC gear that I'll just wear some. We'll be at the Pac-12 tournament tonight at the T-Mobile Arena. Don't even bother saying hi to us because we'll be in a bunker suite. We won't see you. Start your day off with SiriusXM. Enable the SiriusXM skill on your Amazon device. Then tell Alexa to set an alarm for your favorite channel. You'll wake up to the sounds of SiriusXM. With SiriusXM and Alexa, you can get the latest sports news each morning without picking up your phone or turning on the TV. Danny, as a producer, you have to be playing music when I read that?
Yeah,
oh, that's why you have to crank it back up?
That's probably him behind the scenes going, God damn it.
All right. Let's take some calls.
It's a good song, too, though.
There's one last thing I was going to say. Check out Blake. I can't believe it's the second time I'm saying this bozo's name in one day. I was rooting for his team to draw yesterday, and I would have hit a small little bet that I made. Juventus, I had a feeling would advance, but I was hoping it'd be 2-2. They go to penalties, and everybody wins. I'm not really a Tottenham guy. I know our guy Shamakar is, but I wanted them to draw and then settle it. If they drew 0-0 or 1-1, Juventus wouldn't have advanced. But 2-2, they could go to in Europa Champions League. Do they have extra time, or do they go straight to penalties?
No, I think they have extra time.
Okay, so whatever. As long as they got settled and they went, that would have been fine. And Juventus won 2-1, which is good for them. Aging team, but still, man. But anyway, the reason I bring this guy up is we're talking about the weight classes, right? And you know, who would go where. And what I would want to do is the ones that are established, don't rename them. So if you have lightweight at 55, don't call it something else just so you can call 65 lightweight. So just call them super lightweights. Okay? And middleweight is 85. So you want to call 95, I believe, super lightweight or super middleweight. And then leave cruiserweight for 225, which ABC has already adopted. And that way light heavyweight can stay light heavyweight, which is 205. If you make 225 light heavyweight, then you're renaming a whole division, and I don't want to do that. So what that left us with was welterweight being 175. That's the only thing that would change. Is welterweight would still be called welterweight, but at 75. But then he makes a joke and says Woodley still fights. Wouldn't know. I like good bags, but this one's one where Woodley has not fought in 8 months. I think you got to get to a year before you throw that one out.
Yeah, especially he had a pretty good pace.
And prior to that, he fought 4 times in either 10 months or 11 months. So I think you struck out on that one, Blake. Let's take 2 quick calls and we'll get out of here. Showtime from Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's your time.
Yeah, what's going on, fellas?
Hi.
Not much, man.
Man, I'm sitting here listening to you guys. I wasn't going to even call in today, but man, if Jimmy Rivera wins this fight, man, he deserves to be next.
He cannot win. He cannot win a boring fight, though. He cannot win a boring fight because Garbrandt and Dillashaw is a fight people want to see, even if it's 10 times, man. Those guys hate each other. People love those types of fights, and the UFC loves to promote those types of fights.
Man, we need to get away from all this stupid shit and let who's supposed to fight, man, and all this talking shit and all this to fight, man. I want to see people that deserve to fight, man. That's this shit getting like WWE now, man. With all this, you gotta pump the fight up. Shit, it's like Duke and all them things. They win games, man. They don't just do all this shit talking. They win games, and then they deserve. You know, I don't like that, man. I don't like that. That pissed me off, man. This guy got knocked out. So I'm
not too thrilled about it either, but that's kind of where we are with the sport, unfortunately. So my advice to Rivera is win, do your job, win. You got the resume to back it up. But you better talk up a good game, and you better win impressively, because you will get passed over. That's how I'm saying it. I'm not saying that that's the way it should be. We got to move on to the last call. Ben from New Zealand. What's up, Ben? How you been?
I know we're super short on time now, so I'll save all my GSP stuff, and I'll just say condolences in advance to Liverpool fans. Your boys are going down this weekend at Old Trafford, and you're going to fall to 4th place on the table as Spurs surge past you.
All right. Leaving on a good note there. Thank you to Ben from New Zealand and Showtime. Man, we have to wake up at 4:30 for that one, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be a great game. We really need to win that game. Someone needs to slow down Liverpool, that's for sure. They've been racking up a lot of goals, and they're actually doing well for themselves, so someone's got to slow them down. Either way, I think both teams are safe, and even though they won't win the league, I believe they'll be part of that foursome that qualifies for even next year's Champions League. But this year's Champions League still going, and I really wanted the Premier League teams to have a good representation, so that part sucked for Tottenham to not go, but, I mean, come on. Juventus is an awesome team, and they need to be in there at least to the quarterfinals. All right, so thanks to Jorge Gurgel and Pat Miletich. Tomorrow we will be joined in studio by Mike Pyle, and we'll also be joined by Tiki Gosen. Until then, go out there and be a champion.